Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Yutes Kislev. Good Yontiv. L'shana teva, b'limud achsidis, u'b'darke achsidis, tikasevu v'sichasemu. Today is called the Rosh Hashanah of Chasidus. It's the day the Alter Rebbe was liberated from prison, from false charges, and it's explained that this was really a decree, a hindrance to the spreading of Torah HaChasidus, and today's the celebration where we were given the instructions that we have to spread it even more and more powerfully. So today we have to contemplate and think about what is Torah HaChasidus, how do we benefit from it, what is its relevance, etc. Today is also the Yom HaHilula of the Mezritcher Maggid, the second leader of the Hasidic movement after the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was the first, then came the Maggid. So what's the connection between the Maggid and the Alter Rebbe? The Maggid, the Mezritcher Maggid was the Alter Rebbe's master. And what's the connection? And what's the connection to this week's Parsha? So before we get to that, we'll start as usual, first of all, with Tzedakah. Since the war started, we added Tzedakah. Hashem should help that the war should end now. Peace for everyone. We're going to say now a pasuk, which is going to be connected to what we're going to speak about today. It's a pasuk from Tilim, Kapitel Lamed Daled, pasuk Tes. Tamuru ki toiv adinoi, ashrei gevei yechsaboi. Taste and see that Hashem is good. Praiseworthy is the man who takes refuge in him. So when the pasuk says taste and see, so we're talking in terms that we relate to, that's tangible, that's palpable. Taste. You should experience spirituality not as something which is distant and removed and aloof and like spiritual, but on the contrary, taste. Your experience with spirituality should be in the way like you taste it. You feel the flavor, the enjoyment, and see. And like you see something in the physical. That's how it's meant to impact you and resonate, as we'll see from today. Okay, this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayeishev, begins the concept, which is very general in Judaism, which really you can give many lectures on this itself, the clash between Yosef and his brothers. And really it boils down to the two figures, leadership figures, or models of leadership. There's Yehuda and there's Yosef. Those are the two main leaders, and this continues for hundreds of years in the times of the Nevi'im, where we had Malchi Yehuda and Malchi Yisrael, etc. So that's something that has to be investigated and understood exactly what's going on over here, what's the clash, what does it represent, what each one represents, and what's the relevance, etc. But ironically, we find that there's common denominators between Yehuda and Yosef. Even though there's a certain divide and a different perspective, but nevertheless, since they got both the right chinuch, there's certain similarities, as we'll discuss today. An amazing Gemara. But before that, so what's the main themes of the parasha? There's the story of the way his brothers sold him, they were jealous of him. Then there's the story of Yehuda and Tamar, Yehuda and his daughter-in-law. In these shurim, we don't have time to get into the details. We'll discuss it a bit. And then there's the story of Yosef is sold into slavery. Then he falls into the house of Potiphar. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. He declines. He resists the temptation, and he's thrown into prison. That's basically the story of this week's parsha. So we're going to focus on two of these happenings in the parsha. The story of Yosef and Potiphar's wife, and the story of Yehuda and Tamar. Two stories that are connected with a male and a female, and what lessons do we take from this? I'm just saying it happens to be these two stories. So first we'll start with the story with Yosef and Potiphar, and the Moedik Torah of the Mezritcher Maggid. Now, the story is that Potiphar's wife became infatuated. She had a very strong lust for Yosef. Yosef's a beautiful teenager, and she's an older woman, and we're not going into the the spiritual reasons. She saw in Nevuah that there's going to be something from her descendants that are connected to Yosef. We're not getting into that, we're just talking simple. So she lusted after Yosef, and she tried very much to seduce him, and Yosef refused. And Rashi brings on the famous Rashi, Lasis Malachte, I'm not going to get into Rav Shmuel, Chadam Malachte Mamish, V'chadam Lasis Tzorchav Ima. He was about to fall. And Rashi says, he saw the image of his father, as the Gemara Saita brings down. So the simple meaning of what does it mean he saw the demus of his father? He remembered where he came from. He remembered his value system. He remembered what his father taught him. And when he thought of his father, so how could he do such a sin? It would be a betrayal to all the values and virtues that he was taught. Chassidim bring very much about this. Rashi, that, when a person thinks of his Rebbe, when a person thinks of his Rebbe, his master, his mentor, so that will prevent him from doing sin. Now the Mezritcher Magid was today's Yortzeit, so it's a big thing, it's a big importance to Chazar HaTorah of the Mezritcher Magid. The Mezritcher Magid said as follows, I'm going to read it from inside, partly the end of this week's Parsha Vayeishev in the Sefer Torah. What does he learn Pshat? Nirisle demukti yukni shel aviv means that he came to a higher consciousness. What does it mean? I'm reading you the words. V'zeu nire demukti yukni shel aviv she'eshes peitifa hisa mikashetes atzmo lefonav. She would beautify herself, make herself look beautiful and attractive, glamorous. Ubgodim shalov shachas leilov sha'arvis. The Gemara says she used to change her outfits to make herself more attractive. In the morning she wore one outfit, in the afternoon something more different, possibly provocative. Kedisa b'Gemara. So she looked beautiful. Like, advertising in the world today. There's words that they say, what attracts, what sells. So on an external level, on a superficial level, she looked gorgeous, she looked attractive. But v'hu hiskin es alzoi b'teferes habayreis borech. Yosef thought about what's true beauty. Teferes habayreis borech, the beauty of Hashem. V'zeu midas Yaakov ki yidua. Avram represents Chesed, Yitzchak represents Gvura, and Yaakov is Midosoi Teferes. V'zeu vayonas vayetze achutza. What does it mean he ran away? He transported himself to a higher level of consciousness. Shehevi esatzmei l'maylo min ha'elamis. He transcended, he transported himself. He's in a different space. He's thinking differently, he's looking at things differently. And therefore, there's a beauty of this world. When you come and you're in the aura, in the presence, in the projection of true beauty, so then this beauty of the woman is like nothing. The physical beauty. When you think about true beauty, which is coming from Hashem, so this is no comparison. So the simple analogy would be, for example, you have a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, with what is he playing? With Duplo, with Lego, with marbles. And he's getting so super excited about it. Wow. Take it to the next level. You have another person, he appreciates fine cuisine, gourmet food. And he says, this is better food, this is worse food. You have these wine people, the connoisseurs in wine. Now go over to a mathematician who's worried about mathematical problems that haven't been solved in hundreds of years. Imagine his joy when he's able to solve one of these mathematical equations. He's looking at the person that appreciates fine wine as immature, childish. You're getting excited about something that's connected to physical taste. It's nothing. I'm dealing with deep, deep intellectual concepts of mathematical equations. You could take it a step further. Imagine somebody who's a nuclear physicist, people that are delving into time, space, and the universe, light years, stuff like that. I have no idea, black holes. So when that person, he's looking at the mathematical equations, and he's saying the mathematical equations is also just empty air. Doesn't really mean anything. I'm dealing with things that have monumental consequences, theoretically, to many, many, many things that happen, and they're so important, and etc., etc. So similar, I don't know if any of you learned in Kuntus Hamayim in the beginning that the Rebbe Rashab talks about different levels of pleasure. He starts with touch, and then he goes to music, and then he goes to emotions, and then he goes to intellect, and he describes how each level of pleasure is a higher level of pleasure. So the same thing's over here with the Maggid's Pshat in Vayeishev HaTzadik. Once he was exposed to true beauty, not a superficial, external, low level of beauty, but the true beauty. We'll call it a more sophisticated beauty, a holy beauty, a beauty connected to infinity, so that any other beauty of this world pales in comparison. And how is he going to settle for garbage when he could be going after what's really valuable? And the truth is, this concept is brought down in many places in Chassidus. There's a concept called, I think we spoke about it many times, the pasuk, it says, when Mashiach comes, we're going to see ayin ba'ayin, from eye to eye with Hashem. And it's explained that until Mashiach comes, one of the foolishness of the Yetzer Hara is that he makes you go after the wrong value system. Your priorities become warped. And what does it mean that we're going to see ayin ba'ayin, eye to eye with Hashem? That right now we say that the perspective from spirituality is that l'mayla yesh or l'mata ayin, that what's considered true existence, what's above, and what's down here below, which is temporary and physical, that's called ayin, that's called nothingness. So what's called yesh, spiritual matter, so to speak. What's called ayin, physical matter, because it changes, it disintegrates, it deteriorates, etc. But us, but das tachten, it says, there's das ayin and das tachten. Das tachten, right now, in our world, that's what it says, Yisrael had to go l'mayla to see things from a different perspective. But in our world, what's closer to us, right now, by most normal people, not tzaddikim, they look at lamata yesh, what they can feel, touch, smell, they see as reality, and l'mayla, something which is spiritual, they call ayin nothingness. So what happened is that Vayeishev switched consciousness. He went to a higher level of consciousness, an expansion of the mind spiritually, and therefore, obviously, what's considered important and valuable and precious in the physical world all of a sudden meant nothing. Like, let's go back to the mathematician. Imagine a mathematician is listening to somebody talking about how delicious and how precious and how unbelievable it is to have an enjoyable hot dog. He'd look at him and say, you're such a fool, I'm sorry. Okay, that's the Pshat Vayeishev HaTzadik. Now let's go to Yehuda. What happened by Yehuda? He had relations with his daughter-in-law, Tamar. I'm not going to get into the whole story. She took something from him so that he would not be able to deny that they had a relationship. Yehuda found out that there was this woman who, it seemed, was engaged in immoral relations, and the law was that she would have to be put to death. And then she confronted him and said, show this to the person and admit the truth. It was you, Yehuda. And the pasuk says over here, in the words that she said about Yehuda, that he should admit the truth, the word she used was recognize, if you please, whose are this signet, this wrap, and this staff. Rashi on the words haker recognize, please, ein no loshen bakosha. The word no in this context expresses nothing but request, and Tamar said, haker no beiracha. Recognize your Creator. Think about Hashem. So, in other words, if you'll think about Hashem, you'll admit to the truth. And this really also comes from the Gemara in Saita, as we'll discuss more parts of that Gemara. But just in connection to that, There's also a balaturim over here, very geschmack. The balaturim on the words hakeno lemiach esemes, recognize to who this signet belongs to. The balaturim says Sefer Tevis Tira, which means the last letters of these words hakeno lemiach esemes, reish yud reish aleph yud sof, spell the words Tira, you shall fear. Sha'amalei, she told him, Tira es Hashem, fear God, v'soida, and admit. And the pshat is that he feared Hashem, and he admitted. And this is the greatness of Yehuda, and in the Gemara, in Soita, Daf, Yud, Omid Beis, the Gemara says something phenomenal. What does the Gemara say? And this is getting back to what I started speaking about, a common denominator between Yehuda and Yosef. What does the Gemara say? The Gemara says that Yehuda recognized, he listened to what Tamar said, and the pasuk says, Vayaka Yehuda. Yehuda came to the awareness. Simply it means that he recognized those items that were from him, because he had given it to her before. And Vayemer Tzotka Mimeni, and he said, she is right. It's from me, these things. The Gemara says in this, Hainu Damer of Chanan Babizna, Omer of Shimon, Chasida. Listen to this. The Gemara says, Yosef, Shekida Shem Shemayim B'Seisa. The Gemara puts these two stories together. The story of Petifa and the story of Yehuda and Tamar, which answers just a regular question, which many in the Mefarshim, I should have mentioned this before, a famous question. How does the story of Yehuda and Tamar fall into the narrative? Everyone asks this question. And there's many different answers. Rashi himself gives an answer. What's the connection? That the story, it seems like it's an interruption. The story is about Yosef, how he gets sold, what happens to him, and his adventures, and how later the reconciliation between him and his brothers. How come the Torah stops over here with the story of Yehuda and Tamar? So there's many answers. But one point, connections, we're talking about connections. Look at this Gemara. The Gemara says right after, it brings that the pasuk that Yehuda confessed and admitted that it's him that had the relation, that those objects belong to him. The Gemara says, Yosef, Shekid Hashem Shemayim B'Seisa, Yosef, that sanctified Hashem's name in seclusion, because his sanctifying Hashem's name was really only known to Petifa's wife. She claimed that he did the wrong thing, but he denied her. So that was like, wow. Petifa's wife realized, I'm dealing with something, a man of character, a man of integrity, a man who values spirituality and his connection with Hashem and his heritage and his father more than just giving into temptations. So that was a sanctification of Hashem's name. But it was a sanctification of Hashem's name in seclusion, because only Petifa's wife knew that. So the Gemara says, Yosef Shekid Shem Shemayim B'Seiser Zocha V'Yisifelo Ois Achas Mishmei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there's a pasuk where one of the letters of Hashem's name is added to the name Yosef. D'chsev Eidus B'Yosef Samai. He made this day a testimony of Yosef. So over here Yosef's name is spelled with an extra hey. Yehuda Shekid Shem Shemayim B'Farhesye. Yehuda sanctified the name of Hashem in public. Zocha, he merited. V'nikra kulei al shmei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. His entire name, Yehuda, has all the letters of Hashem's name in it. Yud, K, Vav, K. They're all in the name Yehuda. And the Gemara implies that sanctifying Hashem's name in public is greater, obviously. Kiddush Shem Shemayim B'Rabim. That Yehuda, who was the leader, Mr. Important, who's on every single board of the community, a very powerful person, and this woman is accusing him of accusations, and he's standing over there like the judge, and who might condemn her, and she's really exposing that he's the one that's behind the whole problem over here. And he could have denied it. He'd rather cause himself to be humiliated than to humiliate another person. So he showed, and this is a test of many, many situations of leadership, that they deny, they double down, they lie. And Yehuda is the one who sanctifies Hashem's name in public, and therefore his name is Yehuda. So the famous question, one of the questions that's asked is, but the name of Yehuda is before Leah gave it to him when she had Yehuda, she said, Apam Oidas Hashem, she said gratitude. The word Yehuda means gratitude. Thank you, Hashem. So that's one definition, meaning to the word Yehuda. But according to this Gemara, the word Yehuda means admit, to confess. So it's a double question. Number one, the name was already given before, not later, at this point. And number two, we already have a meaning, which is to have gratitude and thankfulness, and not confessing and admitting. So the answer of Chassidus is very simple. It's really the same thing. And this is so important for us in our daily life when we talk about gratitude. Everyone knows, and we spoke about this many times, Yiddishkeit starts with Moide Ani Lefanecha Melech Chai V'Chaim, Moide Miloshin Yehuda. Moide Ani, when we start the day with Moide Ani, it's gratitude. What does confessing mean? What does it mean to admit? The same thing as gratitude. As Chassidus talks about in many Maimarim, the person who has humility yields to something which is greater than him. And that's also, ironically, the connection between Yehuda and Yosef, whether it's that Yosef transports himself to a higher awareness, and then he is able to deny the temptation. It was a higher consciousness. He came to true beauty. This is what Tamar was telling Yehuda. Think about godless akel, tira, fear Hashem. And as Rashi also says, similar to what the Baal Turim says, and the Gemara also brings it down, it's the same point. The more a person allows himself to be receptive, to think about the greater being, the greater authority, the infinity of godliness, godless akel, the more he feels shiflus adam, he has humility, and then he comes to truth. And this is the point of Yehuda, truth. And this is the point of Chassidus Chabad. And this is the point of Yosef. When we say that he went for the ultimate beauty, not a childish beauty, that means he went to the truth, he got to the truth. How do you get to the truth? Getting to the truth is not because you're smarter, not because you're wiser. Coming to truth means you have to have intellectual honesty. You have to have humility. When you have humility, then you come to truth. In the end, it's not about having more brains. In the end, it's about coming to the right conclusions. In the end, it's about coming to truth. It's all about truth. And everything else is irrelevant. You understand what I'm saying? It's about truth. And this is what it means by Yosef. Sorry, getting back to Yehuda, that Yehuda is gratitude. That's what we see by Leah. But really, what is behind gratitude? Behind gratitude is humility. Because the more humility you have less sense of entitlement. You realize the truth. That who says you have to exist? Hashem created you. Hashem is giving you life every single second. You come to the truth. And then obviously you admit and you yield to something which is greater than you. Because you have that humility. Because it's not about you, it's about the truth. And therefore you have gratitude, and therefore you come to truth. And this is what Yehuda is about. Hashem is truth. And the name of Hashem is truth. And that's why Yehuda's entire name represents this idea of truth. Because his humility, he's humble, therefore he comes to truth. Now, the truth is, you could look at it and think of humility as something which sounds like a weakness and a vulnerability. Nothing further can be from the truth. It's the person who's very powerful, is comfortable with having gratitude, where gratitude deserves to be given, because it's the truth. Someone who's powerful from within is not afraid of the truth. He's looking for the truth. And he's happy to embrace the truth. Because if it's not true, then it's completely false. Now, this is what it means by Yehuda. Now let's get back to Chassidus, number one, the Alter Rebbe, in Tanya, in the Akdamas HaMalakat, we're going to learn that on Sunday because we started the Tanya again. He says that he's writing the Sefer, he writes in his compiles forward, he's addressing the Sefer to Mevakshe Hashem. Reitfei Tzedek Mevakshe Hashem. Those are who are seeking. Mevakshe Hashem means people that are seeking the truth. They're interested in finding the truth. They understand that they don't have all the answers themselves, and they're seekers. They're looking for the truth. And once a person is looking for the truth, he's receptive. He opened up a window to be able to receive, and then once the truth will be revealed, then it's automatically going to change because he came to the truth. And he's not upset. A person who's seeking for the truth, if he's shown the truth that he was misguided and he made a mistake, he's happy to be shown the truth because that's what he's looking for. And this is the beginning of the today's shir. We started with that pasuk, Tamuru. Oh, sorry, we started with that pasuk, Tamuru Kitev Hashem. So the story with the Alter Rebbe today's with his Kislev, his Chai Gagula, with the Alter Rebbe once came to a city, Kislev, which was a city that's full of opposition, and he got up and he said, in front of the whole public, Tamuru, Kitov Havaye, versucht wird es sein, der Eibishter ist gut, versucht und seht, der Eibishter ist gut. So he said those words, and obviously Rebbe stuff, Rebbe powers, he caused them to have a change of perspective. They saw the Alter Rebbe, and he said those words, and they actually tasted it. Like Vayeishev, they saw true beauty. They saw truth. And they saw the truth and they became nullified. There's a touch from the Frierdiker Rebbe, a beautiful pshat, where he says that Yidden have three qualities. It says about Yidden, they're Baishonim, Rachmonim, and Geimel Chasadim. They have humility. No, sorry. They have shame. They have shame. In other words, they have a sense of modesty. You know, where's your sense of shame? So the Baishonim, Geimel Chasadim, they do acts of kindness, Bashanim, Rachmanim, and they have mercy. So Chassidus explains, what does it mean that they're Bashanim, that they have a modesty, they have a sense of shame. And the way the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in many Memorim, as a Yid vet bottle for emes. That's what it means by Shanim. A Jew naturally has a trait where he yields before truth. That's a Jew. That's what it means by Shanim. He is confronted with the truth, or the truth shines, and he yields before the truth. And that's what Yehuda means, and that's what every Yid has. And this is the connection, we explain now the connection between the Alter Rebbe and the story of Tamaru, and what Chassidus is all about. Chassidus Chabad is about the truth, and trying to teach the truth, and show the truth. And once we come to nothing but the truth, then the person will change. We just have to know to be seekers. So today, and in Yittes Kislev, we have to make resolutions about just be interested in the truth. Like, are you man enough? Can you handle the truth? And if you can handle the truth, then you'll change. And that's what it's all about. So the Eibusha should help that in the schus of the Baal HaGeula, the Alter Rebbe, and in the schus of the Baal HaGeula, Zitcher Magid, we should work on ourselves to come to a higher consciousness, to work on our value system, that it should be more sophisticated in a positive way, to be less childish, and to go after things that are really valuable, that the value system that we have is correct. And the Eibusha should help that each one of us will improve from today, which is the Reish Hashanah L'Chassidus, to go deeper into things that are of depth, true depth, true meaning, true purpose, and we'll all become better. I'm talking to myself now, and the Eibusha will see our interest in the truth, so we'll find more the truth, which will automatically affect that we should change more, because we have a positive self-esteem that we want to grow. So we're mevakshe Hashem, we're seeking the truth. And the merit of that, the Eibusha will bring from this Chag HaGeula with this Kislev, will come to the ultimate Geula of Bias HaMashiach Tzidkenu take of me ad mamish begula mitzvah shleima now. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.